I read 5 physical books in the month of July and 2 more digitally on my Kindle. So let's talk about all the books that I read last month and also pick my TBR for August. It is crazy to me that we are already this far into the year that I'm picking my August TBR in today's video, but I love filming these reading wrap-ups, so I'm excited to get into it and I don't want to waste any time at all. In the month of July was a very busy month for me because I went on 2 vacations and overall I was just doing a whole lot work-wise, and so I didn't read that much compared to some of my better months during the year. However, if you watched my last wrap up last month in June, I read the least out of the whole year so far because I was dealing with a really intense book slump. And so coming into July, although this isn't like the best reading month ever in my life, I'm very excited because I am officially out of the slump and I had some pretty good reads this month, but I also had like a range of reads, but I'm still proud of myself because we're out of that slump. Yes, we are. So yeah, it was a good month, I won't lie. And also a lot of these books are in reading vlogs on my channel. If you want to go check those out, I post reading vlogs all the time. So that's that. Let's get into the statistics for July. I always track my statistics for my reads on Storygraph, and then I also track all my books on Goodreads and Fable. So if you want to follow any of those platforms, I always follow you back, and I'll have those all linked down below. But in the month of July, I read 7 books, and that was 2,901 pages total. The average time to finish each book was about 7 days, so it was kind of a slower reading month for me, but I still got 7 books out, so excited about that. 29% of the books that I read this month were over 500 pages, and the other 71% were between 499 and 300 pages. They were all fiction, as per usual. My genre breakdown this month, as always, the highest is romance. I had 6 romance books, 3 fantasy, and then 1 dystopian, 1 LGBTQ, 1 young adult, 1 literary, and 1 contemporary. 71% of the books that I read this month, aka 5 books, were physical, and the other 2 were digital, either through audiobook or on my Kindle. And then my average rating this month was a 3.71. So if you look at this chart on the screen, I had a wide range. I got a 5-star this month, but I also got a 2-star and just about every other star in between those 2 numbers. So we have a lot to talk about, and let me just jump into the first book. And that book was, to everyone's surprise, including myself, it was Shatter Me by Tahira Mafi. Have you heard of this book? This book blew up. It is so popular from like the early 2010s, I believe, that this was first released. And I feel like the people who know about this book, which is a very vast amount of people, divide into 2 different categories. Either they read it when the books originally came out, when they were younger usually, because this is directed towards a YA audience, and they have so much love for this book and this book series, and they adore it. So even now in present day, the nostalgia they hold for it is like incredible, and so they're all like fiending over this book even years later, which valid. That's how I feel about like Percy Jackson, so I get it. But the other camp of readers for this book are people like me who didn't read this book when it first came out, so later in their life, I suppose. I'm not that old, but I didn't read it when I was a younger teen, and they don't get it. And unfortunately, I did not get it. This book was a 2-star for me. I'm sorry to the Shatter Me lovers out there, I really am. But I said it before in the reading vlog, I said it in multiple TikToks, this book just did not hit for me. It was not my jam. If you don't know, this is a dystopian book, but it's honestly more romance than dystopian. It's like in the peak of YA dystopian in the early 2010s, like at the same time that Hunger Games and Divergent were coming out, like in that era of books. We follow our main girl named Juliet, who, what even is her power? Oh, her touch is fatal. That's her power. I read this like a month ago and I already forgot. Yeah, so she can't touch people because she will kill them if she touches them. And she is put in this like, I guess psych ward, I suppose, and she's like being held there and she doesn't know how she's gonna live her life and she's just like trapped there forever. And then she gets an inmate one day. Someone else is introduced into her cell. The guy's name is Adam. It's a little bit love triangle-y. It's very much like dystopian, and it's basically just her escaping and learning more about her powers, I guess. There's also the infamous or famous, however you want to put it, Aaron Warner in this book. And yeah, I can't really say too much about this because number 1, I only read book 1. My sister read the entire series, and once I told her I wasn't going to continue the series, she spoiled the entire series for me. So I know a lot of what happens, but I also very much intend to not continue the book, but I'm also trying to remember what is in this book specifically. That way I make sure I'm not giving any spoilers away, even though I know what happens in the rest of the series. It's like a complicated one for me. It just did not click for me at all. Juliet was annoying. The writing style was terrible. Like I said it in my reading vlog, Tahira Mafi, I've read The Wolf and Kingdom by her a couple months ago, and I gave it like 3.5 stars. When I read this, I was like, thank God that I read this after This Woman Kingdom, because if I read this first, I would never give Tahara a second chance. I would have never picked up This Woman Kingdom because her writing style is so different in this from that. In that book, it's so beautiful and vocabulary full, and it's just a lovely writing style. In this, it's annoying. It's like a 12-year-old is writing this book. I didn't care about the story. It was too young for me. It didn't work. Now, if you love it, I love that for you, truly. I know there's so many lovers of Shatter Me, but for me this was a 2-star, and I'm not continuing with the series. So sorry. That's it on this one, and I don't want to mention it again on this channel. So that's it. That's done. The next book, however, was vastly improved. This was one of the best books that I read all month, and I'm so happy about it because I really had such high expectations for this book, and that is Servant of Earth by Sarah Hawley. This book was on my July TBR, which we'll talk about my TBR in just a few minutes and how I was successful and not with that. But I was gifted this book for my birthday. It was on my TBR for a couple months, and when I picked it up, I was so excited to read it. And truly, honestly, this was a 4.5 star. It was such a pleasant surprise after reading. Side tangent just for a second before I talk about the plot of this book. I have really fallen in love recently with fantasy books that have romance in them, but there is so much more than just the romance. I've been such a romantasy lover for so long, but I've read quite a few books recently, including this one, where the romance is such a small subplot and the actual plot or the political aspect of the book is like the main focus. And I have been eating them up recently. Like maybe I'm trying to scooch away from, I'm not scooching away from romance at all. I was gonna say that, but I take that back. But I'm just like, this is one of those books that falls into that category because this book was truly not about romance. There was some love scenes in this book. There are love interests, plural. I have a favorite. I think everyone who reads this book knows who my favorite is, but although I really enjoyed that, this book is about so much more than that. So we follow our main girl, Kenna. She is a human from the mortal world, but in this world, 4 women, only ladies, which annoying, but are taken basically as sacrifices to the Fae, and they have to cross this like bog, and most of them usually die in the bog, but Kenna makes it through to the Fae world, and they're all like, what are you doing here? Why did you die in the bog? And she's like, girl, I don't know. And so they're like, well, we could kill you, or you could be the servant of one of the princess, basically the princess of one of the different courts in this Fae world. I may be using the wrong vocabulary here. It's been a hot second since I read this book, but I'm pretty sure, they're houses, not courts. So there's 6 houses: Earth, Fire, Light, Void, Illusion, and Blood, and she becomes the basically maidservant to the princess of Earth House. And in this world, the princess and a bunch of other people have to do these trials to get their magic and their immortality as Fae. And so as her maidservant, it kind of really helps her mistress, whose name is it Laura? It is Laura. Okay, her name's Laura, helps her get through the trials and survive. So it's really interesting. The trials are fine. Not my favorite part about this book at all. They're just okay. But I really liked how the Fae were described, because similar to like old fairy tales, like they're not like Fae warriors. They're like Fae creatures with like interesting body parts sometimes, and they're usually very mean, and they have weird powers, and it's just really curious the way that they built this world up, and the political aspect of this was so intriguing, and I was just rooting for Kenna. And I said this in the reading vlog, but this book is also really about women supporting women. Kenna is such a girl's girl. She's such a powerhouse. I really love her character and reading about her, because so many times main female characters in books can be really annoying depending on how the author writes them, and I hate that. I want my FMCs to be represented as they should, and I want them to be powerful and self-competent and have their flaws but work through it characters, you know? And Kenna in this book is so courageous, very intelligent. She makes mistakes, but she works through them, and she's very human. Like, I can relate to her. People can relate to her when they read her, and the way that she helps other women in this book and the way that they help her is just beautiful. It's so sad, some scenes in this, but it's honestly just the strength of women supporting women is just awesome. So if you want a book like that, you really should pick this up. This is the start to a duology, and book 2 comes out in a couple months, I think. So a perfect time to start and finish a series in just a matter of months. It was so good. 4.5 stars. This is Sarah Hawley's debut, I believe, and honestly, it's phenomenal work. I've been yapping for over 10 minutes and I've only gotten through 2 books. That's a problem. Let's work through this a little faster, shall we? The next book that I read was Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher. This is a book that I got secondhand at Half Price Books in Dallas, and at the time I was reading her first series, her Dreamland Billionaire series, and I was loving books 2 and 3 in that series. And this is her newest release that is like currently going through. Actually, wait, Dreamland Billionaires isn't her first series. She wrote the Dirty Air series as well, I believe. But anyway, this is her 3rd series called the Lakefront Billionaire series, and this is book 1 in it, and I know that it's still being released, but I wanted to start catching up. So I picked up book 1 and I was really excited about it. This follows Julian and Dahlia. Julian is a construction worker, Dahlia is an interior designer, so very much like Hallmark type jobs being put together. And they're kind of like childhood, second chance, families have always known each other, they've always been together their whole lives, to lovers. Dahlia moved away, I think, to California, and she eventually like was a fiance to a guy named Oliver, but things happened, the engagement has been broken off, and she has come back to her hometown in Lake Wisteria where Julian lives and their families live, and it is so Hallmark coded. Like, I'm talking family dinners and town festivals and harvest season, all the homey Hallmark movie stuff, and if you're into that, you might really enjoy this. But truly, this book did not hit for me, and I was so sad about it. I gave it 3 stars. I wanted to love it, I wanted to feel the feels, but I find that super sappy romance books just really, number one, aren't my thing. I like something with more of an emotional, hard-hitting impact. I like something that's gonna make me either laugh or cry. I think just, you know, heartwarming smiles is not my thing. Maybe I'm just being too specific here. It just didn't work for me. I didn't feel the chemistry. That's a big thing. I didn't feel the chemistry between these two. Do I think that they are good together? Yeah, sure. But at the beginning, they're just like bickering for the first 200 pages, which, by the way, this is a 500-page romance, which is way too long in my opinion. Yeah, I was just like chugging through the last half because I was trying to get it over with. But the first 200 pages were them bickering, and then the last 200, it just switched to like, oh, we're in love. And they just had like lovey-dovey scenes for the rest of the book, and I was just like, I didn't feel the tension, I didn't feel the drama, I didn't feel that drawn to them as a couple. And I think that they will stay together, you know, if this is a real story, because I feel like they work together well and they make sense together, but I just didn't care that much. You know, I didn't feel like I had any love for these two characters. Additionally, there was a little tiny side plot, which is brought in at the very beginning, so I don't think it's a spoiler, but there is a little side plot of Dahlia having infertility issues in this book. And honestly, as someone who has never experienced that before, I don't have much of a leg to stand on, and I understand that. But I think that that would have been an interesting route to go down plot-wise to just give this more depth, because it was really lacking depth in my opinion. So I think that that would have been an interesting kind of road to explore a little deeper, but it seemed very surface level in this book. So that's a trigger for you. Maybe tread carefully, but also know that it really isn't delved into all that much. But as someone who just wants more interesting things in a romance, I thought that could have been something interesting that she did not pursue that far. So honestly, this was very disappointing for me from Lauren Asher, who I was calling one of my favorite romance book writers until I read this, because now I've read 2 4 stars, 2 3 stars, and a 3.5 by her. So she's actually kind of in the middle now. I really wanted this to be like a high 4-star for me, but I do still intend to continue the series because I've heard that book 2 is really good. So we will see, but it's going to be a hot second before I pick up book 2, because again, this was honestly annoying to read about because I wanted to love it, but I just didn't. All right, but speaking of books that I really truly had the best time with, this was my 5-star from this month. I ate this book up, and that is The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, which I gave a reread this month. I have been rereading so much this year, and I'm trying to make it a goal for myself to really slow down the rereads, because half of the books I've given, actually more than half the books that I've given 5 stars so far this year, have all been rereads. And so it's like, were they really new 5 stars? No, and that needs to be resolved. So I'm trying my best to not reread so much going forward, but I really wanted to reread this book because I reread book 1 in this series, Serpent on the Wings of Night, last month, and I gave it 5 stars. And I had the whole duology, and I'm about to read book 3 in this series coming up really soon because I have the physical copy as well. So I was like, I should give this book a reread so I don't like jump from book 1 to 3. And Serpent on the Wings of Night, 5-star, and this book, again, 5-star. Honestly, the person who thought that book 1 was better than this isn't necessarily wrong, but is also not right. This book is just as good as book 1 in my opinion. I think that the discrepancies between the two is that book 1 is high action trials, trope, enemies to lovers, things are happening. This book is more political, it's more war, it's more desperate second chance romance. It's a very different vibe than book 1, and yet I still ate it up. Do you see these annotating tabs? Because my god, there are so many in here. I also wrote so much in these pages and highlighted so much. There's just like so many pages where I'm just like scribbling and underlining because I just felt so much when I was rereading this book, and it just made me think like, why would I not give this 5 stars? It's incredible. So book 1 follows the main girl, Aurea, who is a human in a vampire world. She is basically adopted by the vampire king. So she lives in the vampire kingdom, but everyone basically wants to eat her and suck her blood, and if it wasn't for her father's Vincent protection, she would be dead a long time ago. So she decides to enter what's called the Kajari, which is this series of trials, and again, where the person who wins after everyone else is dead gets a wish from the goddess Nyaxia, and she was going to wish to have the powers of a vampire, essentially. In the trials, she meets this guy, Rain, who is a vampire, but he's a different type. There's Rishon and Hiaj. He's Rishon. Her family is Hiaj. And it's an enemies to lovers, but it's also a fight to the death, and it's so good. This book, I'm not going to say much because the end of book 1, the plot twist is absolutely mind-boggling, so you need to read that first, obviously, to understand this. But I will just say that this is enemies to lovers again, because Carissa takes what we formed in book 1 and then she breaks our hearts, and then we find the romance again in book 2. It's very vague to explain it like that, but let's just say that she is one of the only ones I can believe would make me love the two of them together again. And Carissa's writing is just beautiful, genuinely so gorgeous. So yeah, this was a 5-star. Absolutely had a phenomenal time reading this. I did read it quite slowly. I read it on vacation, so it took me a week to get through, and it is also 600 pages, so it is quite long. No regrets at all with this reread. I love this book. I love this series, and I cannot wait to get into book 3 with Misha. I'm excited about her book. So that's going to come in a vlog super soon. Subscribe so you don't miss it. All right, so we're over halfway there. The next book that I read in July, I read on my Kindle, which, by the way, if you didn't watch my last reading vlog, which was my July TBR, I went to Chicago and I got this little Kindle charm. It's a little bow. I'm obsessed with this. This is $8 spent so well. So I'm going to show her off as much as I can because I think she just gives me a little serotonin boost whenever I look at her. But yeah, the next book was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This is a book that was also on my TBR, so check that off. And I wanted to read this book for years, but I've never gotten around to it. I read Malibu Rising and Daisy Jones by Taylor Jenkins Reid, but I never read her most famous book, which is Evelyn Hugo. So I put it on my TBR. I was determined to read it this month, and I listened to it mostly on audiobook, and then also I read a little bit on my Kindle. And yeah, this book it's really good. It lives up to the hype. This is a 4-star read for me. I had so much fun with this book. So basically, we follow our main character, Evelyn Hugo, who is kind of what Marilyn Monroe is to American culture, but she's obviously fictional. She was really big in the 50s and 60s, blonde, beautiful, talented actress, very popular star, and throughout her life she had 7 separate husbands. And so in this story we follow her in present day because she reaches out to this girl named Monique, who is a journalism author, writer, and she wants Monique to come and interview her and tell her story, but she will only do it to Monique for some peculiar reason. And so it's basically a lot of just Evelyn narrating her life and telling her past and all of her different husbands and all of the drama of Hollywood. And as someone who, correct me if I'm wrong, is Cuban American, I believe, so she grew up in a Spanish household with a single dad, but it was definitely a very abusive situation, and she pulls herself up, she gets herself to Hollywood, she does what she needs to do to get the job done, to be popular, to be a star, to fulfill her dreams, to be rich, to be successful. She does what she needs to do, but sometimes you have to question, is it the right thing to do? Are these sacrifices that she's making morally right? As readers, we can say they're not, and yet we still support her doing it because we know what she's gone through to get to this point. We know the trials and tribulations that she has worked through in her life. We're watching her from the ages of 16 to late adulthood, and by the time that she's old and is telling the story, she knows that she's flawed. She knows that she's made mistakes, but she doesn't regret a thing about her life because of the immense experience that she had. Also, even though she had 7 husbands, she at this point in her life is single, and she is being interviewed by Monique, and Monique is like, Evelyn, out of all of your husbands, who is the true love for your life? The people want to know, who is that number 1 person for you? And Evelyn's answer is basically the point of the entire book, and I can't spoil, of course, but it's just really good. And so yeah, I enjoyed this so much. The audiobook was a great reading experience. I don't read much literary fiction, to be honest, and so the audiobook makes it easier for me to get through the chapters that may have been a little slow, but truly the way that Taylor Jenkins Reid writes, she tells you all the drama, all the tea. If you like reality television, this is a great book to pick up because it's really just Hollywood drama, for 300 pages, but also there's a lot of emotion packed into this book. I did shed a tear or two towards the end. Yeah, it's Honestly, a crazy, incredible book. People say it's life-changing for them. It wasn't life-changing for me personally. That doesn't mean I loved it any less, though. It was still so amazing, 4 stars. And I just love Taylor Jenkins Reid's books. I think they're really, really good. Finally checked this off my TBR, and I'm happy that I did so. Next book I also read on my Kindle. This was a very quick book that I read when I was in Chicago. I was reading a different book, which is my last book for this month, but I had to put a pause on it and come read a little palate cleanser before I finished that one. So the first book I finished was Time of Your Life by Jessa Hastings. Now, before I get into this book, Jessa Hastings and her AI debacle. I need to go and watch a couple of videos and educate myself more about this whole situation. But basically, Jessa Hastings has been publicly said as being supportive of not only using generative AI, but also using it to write her books. I obviously do not support generative AI in making art. It is cheating. It is wrong. You cannot steal from other people and call it yours. Point blank, period. At the time of reading this book, I did not know about all the drama. I still want to go look more into it and learn more about her as an author and what her values are with using AI, because although I have really adored everything that I've ever read by her before, it does make me question how much I should be supporting her if what she's writing is stolen, of course. So I'm definitely gonna look more into that. But at the time of reading this, I did not know about the controversy. That's that. This was her newest release over the summer. This is a book about a model and a rock star in the 90s in London. So we follow, bear with me on this pronunciation because she used very complicated names for no reason, but Joah, Joah, and Ysolde, Isolde. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Isolde's the model, Joah is the rock star. They meet at a bar one night and there is an instant connection. Like sparks are flying. They feel so hot for each other. Usually when we read a book like that with this insta love, insta lust to be honest, but they also fall over head over heels very, very quickly for each other. Like they are so interdependent. It's crazy how close they become so quickly. Usually when I read a book like that, I am turned off a little bit by the absurdity of it. Like, I'm not necessarily opposed to insta love. There are many books where I feel like love at first sight is a plot point and I still love it, even though it is like that. But in this book, I think it's in a unhealthy way, because although we do follow them falling in love so quickly, so fast, absolutely desperate for each other, they cannot be apart. The tabloids are always talking about them and they're always together kind of thing. Towards the middle to the end of the book, we're realizing their relationship has flaws and it's falling apart, and Joah is doing bad things to Isolde and Isolde is reacting and doing bad things to him, and it's just like a back and forth. And by the end of the book, which by the way, I thought this was a standalone, turns out it's actually the start to either a duology or a series, so that's mind-boggling. Okay, but I do think that there needs to be a second book, because the ending of this one was just like, what? You know? I feel like book 2 is going to take a turn, and if it takes the turn that I want it to take, I'll be happy. If it doesn't, I'll be annoyed. But all that to say, in comparison to Magnolia Parks, which is obviously Jessa's most famous series ever, do I think that this is incredibly similar? Yes, I do. I do think that Isolde and Joah is really just Magnolia and BJ in a different font. It's like them, but in the 90s. It's them, but they're celebrities. It's them, but they have less personality. Like the time that Jessa spent developing the past relationship between Magnolia and BJ and their personalities in their book was a time that she spent developing their celebrity personas and the trials and tribulations of being a famous celebrity, a famous star in Time of Your Life. So I feel like we were missing a lot from our characters. They didn't feel quite deep enough because so much of their lives was about just being popular. But that being said, I feel like I'm talking very negatively about this book. I do have my qualms with it, but I read this book so fast. I absolutely inhaled the story. It was so addicting. It was so entertaining. Again, kind of similar to Evelyn Hugo, but very different from that book, but still kind of similar. This is drama. This is tea. This is for reality TV lovers, especially those who enjoy like stories about people in the 90s or like old tabloids and stuff about old celebrities. This is for you. You will eat this up. It goes by so quickly, and I had the best time reading it despite having my issues with this book. So I did give this book 4 stars. I don't know how it came out with a 4-star, to be honest, but it was a 4-star, and I stand by that because I had so much fun reading this and I inhaled it so quickly. So we will just see how the rest of the series / duology ? Goes. That was that. Now, one more book that I read in the month of July, number 7, is another highly anticipated, long overdue read. This book was nerve-wracking, incredibly scary for me, but I finally read The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. Now, this is my copy of the book. If you saw the reading vlog that I posted with this, I was reading my friend's copy, but update, after reading, I transferred all of my annotations over to my own copy. So I don't even know if you can see all the writing in here. I think there are just a few tabs, but I truly wrote on almost every single page in this book because there is just so much in this book that it's hard to digest unless you're like writing down your thoughts as you go, in my opinion. We follow 6 main characters that are chosen to come to this Alexandrian society, which is basically a group of people who have restored or found the lost library of Alexandria, and they use it for magic training, for research, for knowledge, but they hide that knowledge away to only the select few. And in this case, it's 6 people. They train, they learn for a year, and at the end of the year, only 5 people can actually make it in to the society. So one person cannot pass. And that's basically it. That's the entire book. There is so much in here about characters and so little about plot. So although I'm always a character first, then plot, then writing person, whenever I read books, that's like my order, this is a hard one to get through because basically nothing happens. Like they all get to the building, the library, whatever it is, and then they just have conversations and read books and do magic and talk some more for the rest of the book. And as readers, we can get so confused because so much is hidden from us. We are reading about these characters having conversations about things that we don't understand, whether it's a concept that we can't grasp or just information that we simply weren't given. And also the characters are all very morally gray. We have Nico, Libby, Parisa, Callum, Tristan, and Reyna. Out of all of them, I love Nico. Libby is okay. Parisa is a badass. The other 3 I really don't care about. So it's hard for me to read this book because I'm flipping between different perspectives, and half of them I just don't even want to be in their heads, to be honest. When I first started this book though, I was really intrigued because her writing style is honestly it's good. It's really good. It's just so convoluted and so confusing. She will write very elaborate sentences, very deep sentence structures that I can really appreciate as someone who likes really nice writing. But also, after finishing this book, there's so much that she withholds from you that it can be so frustrating to read this book and to read her writing because you just don't understand. We are just simply either not as smart as Olivia or not as smart as she's portraying herself to be, if that makes sense. I don't know if this is actually how she writes or thinks, or if this is just how she elaborates herself to make her seem, extra more hoity-toity. I don't know. But yeah, the writing style, it's a lot to swallow. After I got through the beginning, this like middle 200 pages bored me to tears. I could not get through it. Again, it's just conversations. They're just talking to each other. I just was so bored. I was like, I don't care. I don't understand it. I don't care. And that's why I had to take a pause on this book and go read Time of Your Life because this was just not doing it for me. And the last 100 pages blew me away. The plot twist, the insane information that we are given, it is actually jaw-dropping, mind-boggling. My gob is smacked, my flabber is gasted, like all the things. And it truly rewrote how I view the entire story now. I think if future me gets intrigued and is curious, I will pick up book 2. As of right now, I'm not putting book 2 on my series to continue list because I just don't know if I really care that much, but I will just say that the plot twist really rocked my world. I just think the middle slumped so much. That's it. That's all I got for you, to be honest. I think I just spoke in circles. I didn't say anything in like a orderly fashion, but truly this book has my head scrambled. Good thing or bad thing, who's to decide, truly. All right, so now that all of my reading from July was wrapped up, the next part of this video is to talk about my August TBR. I need to go get my August TBR jar to pick the prompts, and I also just want to get all my books figured out. But first, let's talk about all of the books that I read in July, like which ones were on my TBR and what I successfully completed. Come in.
The book sounds good. Which one are you talking about?
Atlas 6. Can you say hi to the camera? Hi. My sister says hi. Yes, like I was saying, the 6 books that I picked for my July TBR were Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Quicksilver, Atlas 6, Shatter Me, Servant of Earth, and Jazzed Crown. And I'm sure that you can tell from my wrap-up video that I read 4 of these and left 2 of them unread. Now, to be honest, 4 out of 6 is kind of good for me. I usually don't do that well on my TBRs, so pat on the back for me. I did try to film a video where I finished my July TBR, and obviously that was unsuccessful, but if you missed that vlog, it was still a fun one to watch, so I go watch that last vlog. But as of right now, recording this, I am currently almost done with Jazzed Crown, so that's going to be in my August wrap-up coming next month. And spoiler alert, it's so good. It's so good. So I am still reading it. It just didn't get finished in the month of July. I'm going to go switch out my books, get my TBR jar, and I'll be right back to pick the books we want to read in August. Okay, I have returned and I have basically my entire physical TBR with me. I have about 17 books with me, plus my Kindle, a lot to choose from for today's TBR. But as usual, I pick with my TBR prompts from this little old Target Cup TBR jar. So giving my prompts a spin, I know I said in the last reading wrap-up video that I wanted to add new TBR prompts. I've picked a lot of these before. I have not added new prompts, but I still do want to, so if you have any prompts for me to add, let me know and I will print them out hopefully before this next wrap up in August. But picking our first prompt, we have, a prompt I've never had before. A book set between 1950 and 2000. I literally just read 2 books last month that could have fit this prompt. Both Evelyn Hugo and Time of Your Life fits this prompt. What books do I have? Do I have any books that were fit within that time period? I feel like a lot of these are mostly fantasy or they are contemporary books. Let's look at Goodreads and see what historical options I have, if any. Okay, I just added, this is very random for me, very weird, I know, it's not my normal genre, but I just recently added Buffalo Hunter Hunter to my want to read list on Goodreads. It's like a historical thriller, I believe. Not my usual cup of tea, but I've heard amazing things. But this begins with a diary written in 1912. Let's Google it just in case. So the novel is rooted in the historical events of the Marias Massacre? When was the Marias Massacre? Oh, it was even earlier, 1870. Yeah, okay, definitely not the right time period. So unfortunately, that cannot be added to the list. Another book that's out of my usual realm of books, but I put Ordinary Monsters on my want to read list. What time period, I think it's earlier than 1950s, is Ordinary Monsters. I want to say it's like Victorian England or something. Yeah, 1880s Victorian England. Damn it. I have The Wolf Den, but it's a slave in Pompeii, and that's definitely not the late 1900s. I don't know if I have anything on here from that time period. Genuinely, I really wish that I did. Wait, hold the phone. Okay, yeah. I'm excited. Okay, we found one. This deserves a round of applause from everybody. So, round of applause. I found a book. This book is called The Exorcism of Fairies by J.L. Vampa. I was recommended this book by Bailey's Bookshelf on YouTube. She loved this book, gave it 5 stars, and I was curious about it. And from reading the synopses, it seems to take place in 1990s, specifically 1993, in Trinity College in Dublin. So this counts. This is in that time period. So excited about this. This, I'm pretty sure, is a standalone, which thank God, they're not enough standalones that I've read. I need to stop starting series. So this is the first book on my TBR for August. A round of applause. I'm so excited about it. Now on to prompt 2. Hopefully we can pick an easier prompt. All right. Ooh, interesting. This is a book you know nothing about. This is nice because it's another prompt that I have never picked before. So yay. Now, looking at my physical TBR, this does make things difficult because I really want to read off my physical TBR, but I wouldn't buy a book unless I know vaguely something about it. So I do know a little bit of the synopsis of almost every one of these books, or at least the vibes of all of these books. I'm trying to think if I had to pick 2 from this list. We have The Songbird and the Heart of Stone. This is the next book in the Crowns of Nyaxia series that comes after The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King that I just reread and gave 5 stars. I'm really excited for this book, but the only thing I know about it is that it's about Misha. I don't know anything about the plot at all. So this technically could count because I don't know what happens. I just know that it's about Misha, I guess. The other option from this list I'm thinking is maybe Throne of the Fallen. I've had this book for a year. That's right, a year. I've had it for so long. But this is about the Prince of Envy, kind of related to the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy, which I read book 1 of and just skipped the next 2 because I didn't really care that much, but I wanted to read this one. Besides it being about envy and an enemies to lovers romance and some kind of adventure, I don't know what happens at all, like at all. So this kind of fits into that category. This is really hard because I really want to read both of them. I really do. I've had this one for longer, but I also want to catch up on this series before the next book comes out in like a couple months. I think I've got to pick The Songbird and the Heart of Stone. Sorry, Throne of the Fallen. I know I need to read this book so badly. Maybe I can find another prompt that works for this one, but I want to read this one and do my continuing the series and hopefully vlog this one. And also, it just makes sense to read this one after I read the first book in June and the second book in July. Again, besides knowing that it's about Misha, I have no clue what happens in this book. I think it's enemies to lovers. I haven't even read the back of this actually. And it's also quite short. It's only, well, it's like 420 pages, but compared to like the other books in the series that are 500, 600, it's definitely shorter. So I'm gonna pick this one as book 2. I really want to read this one, so I'm just gonna pick it, okay? Now prompt 3. Okay, this prompt is a book with a 3-word title. Definitely a little easier to choose because I can really just count the words, So, Off to the Races is 4, Swordcatcher is 2, Legendborn is 1, Good Girl's Guide to Murder is more than 1. Okay. We have option 1 is One Dark Window, 3 words right there. This book, I feel I've been honestly procrastinating reading it, but I feel like it'd be a good read for the fall. The Poppy War is 3, but also I'm not reading this book right now. I'm not in the mood for this kind of emotional devastation. So sorry, it's not happening. So basically, the only book on my physical TBR list that has 3 words in it, besides The Poppy War, is One Dark Window. Oh, my books just fell. This is a hard one for me because I have been wanting to read this one for a long time, but I actually got like 30 pages into it when I started it a couple months ago. Before I read Silver Elite, I picked up this one and I put it down because it wasn't really hooking me in. When you start a book and then put it down, it always makes it so much harder to pick it up again because you're nervous it's not gonna hit, kind of like it didn't hit the first time. So I am very nervous about this one. Let me just browse my digital TBR just to see if there's a second option I could pick from. Us Dark Few is a dystopian romance, I want to say, but like not in the vibes of Silver Elite. I've heard good things about this one. I think it's Prisoner and Guard. I really want to read this. Oh, maybe it's not dystopian, maybe it's sci-fi, or both. I'm like reading briefly through the reviews right here, and I think it might be both. I am torn, I won't lie, but although I really want to read my physical TBR, and I really want to read this book, I don't think I'm in the mood for it right now. And at my core, I am a mood reader. So I think I'm gonna go with my gut and read something I'm more interested in at this moment in time, which is Us Dark Few by Alexis Patton. This book is gonna be put off for now. I'm sorry. I still want to read it, I do, but it's just like not the vibe. I'm gonna pick Us Dark Few. And moving on. Oh, also, ironically, Us Dark Few, I believe, is also a book that was recommended to me by Bailey's Bookshelf. So I'm just like turning into a Bailey's Bookshelf supporter by reading all of her favorite books at this point. Okay, prompt 4, halfway there. This next prompt is, oh God. Oh my gosh. This is a book that you've DNF'd before. Literally One Dark Window. God, is this a sign? Do I have to read this book now? My gosh, that's crazy. Like actually crazy. I picked that one up right now. I did technically soft DNF this book before. I'm trying to think if there's anything else on my shelf that I have picked up before and soft DNF, but I don't think there is. I think this is like the one and only option, basically. Oh my gosh. That's literally like the best and worst timing at the same time. Well, now I have no excuses, or you can't complain, because I'm literally reading this book as well as One Dark Few. Or Us Dark Few? Yeah, Us Dark Few. All right, so this book is also added to the DBR. I'm sorry for speaking badly about you. I still want to read you. I'm just nervous. I'm really nervous. All right, very quick with that one, because I was given a sign to read that book, but let's pick number 5. Oh, this is a fun one. This is a book that's been on your mind a lot recently. This is like nice because I can just pick what I want, basically, which I do all the time. Not anything new, but I have like much more free reign. What book have I been thinking about recently? I'm trying to think. We have 2 fantasy, 3 fantasy, and 1 dystopian sci-fi that we've picked so far. So maybe I should pick something more in the contemporary realm so I can kind of take a break from fantasy. I just bought Off to the Races by Elsie Silver in Chicago. There's also a thriller. I could read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I was given this book for my birthday, I think last year, so it's been a hot second that I've had this book. The thing is, I just really don't read that much thriller unless I'm really drawn to reading thriller, but I know that this is a really good series. I know that everyone loves this series. Another thought, although I haven't really been thinking about this one too much, but it's A Long Way Home, the next book of the Magnolia Parks series, or we could just stick with my fantasy-loving self and pick Throne of the Fallen again. This is actually harder when I have too many options to choose from. You know, out of all of these choices, the one I think I've been really thinking about the most recently, which could simply be recency bias, but I think I've been wanting to read Off to the Races the most because I just bought this one and I've been really curious about it for months. So definitely a harder pick for me because I'm not sure. I really want to read all of these books, which is why I obviously bought them. But I think I'm going to pick this one because it's just a palette cleanser from all of the fantasy that I've been picking so far for this month. So if I want to do something very different, I could read this instead. So that's number 5. Let's pick our last prompt. I like to pick 6 books because it's definitely a challenge for me to complete that TBR, but I also just love picking them, so I want to pick as many as I possibly can. That is still in the realm of like can be completed. All right, and the last book, this book prompt is a book with a white cover. Well, I just picked this book a couple minutes ago, which has white on it, but I can't pick it again, obviously. Out of all the books that I have physically. The white ones are these three. We have, once again, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which is mostly white. We have The Poppy War, which again is probably going to break me, so I'm nervous about it. And then we have City of Gods and Monsters. Now, I am so excited to read this book. I have been waiting to read this for the longest time, and I'm just head over heels excited to pick this up. The problem with this one, which I'm leaning the most towards right now, is that this is urban fantasy, and this is also urban fantasy. This is the last book in Sarah J. Maas's Crescent City series, and I wanted to read this before I read this. But do you see how long this book is? This is 850 pages, okay? This is long. With all the books that I'm reading so far on the TBR, I don't think I can finish this book and still read this book and every other book I want to read this month before the end of the month. So, although I am so excited about this book, I don't know if I can read it right now. Am I being like too harsh on myself and making up rules that I don't need to be making just for the sake of like keeping myself in line? I think I definitely am not going to pick The Poppy War because, again, devastating. Can't do it right now. Too much is going on in the world for me to think about that kind of sadness. The other option is something quick and easy, like a thriller, Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Either we do a thriller that I'm not as interested in, or we're doing a book that I'm so excited for and have the highest expectations for, but also may ruin the Crescent City book if I read this first because it may be better, you know? So I'm actually like a little lost. Like I wish that you were standing in front of me so I could ask you which one you think I should do, because you may be like screaming at your screen right now, telling me one or the other, and I just don't know what to pick. I don't know what to pick. I think that although I want to read this book so bad, like I want to read this so badly, I'm very much a best for last kind of person. I want to save my best books for last, which maybe is counterproductive, but it's just the kind of person that I am. So I want to really read Crescent City before I read this, so I'm gonna have to put this off for another month. I'm making the decision. We're calling it. The book that I'm gonna add to my TBR is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I have been wanting to read Holly Jackson. It's been on my TBR for a long time, and I'm still very excited about this. Don't get me wrong, I really want to read this and know the lore and know the story. I'm just like a little, actually very much torn up inside that I didn't pick the other one, but I have to read Crescent City first, because what if it's worse and they're just disappointing? Like I can't have this in my head distracting me when I'm reading Crescent City, because I would just compare the two. So I need to read Crescent City first, so I need to put this down and read it later. You can see the turmoil, you can see the struggle, but I think I'm gonna read this one instead. So that's number 6. The 6 books that are on my August TBR are as follows: One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig, Off to the Races by Elsie Silver, Songbird in the Heart of Stone by Carissa Broadbent, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson, Us Dark Few by Alexis Platten, and The Exorcism of Fairies by J.L. Vampa. Definitely wish me luck with this one. I'm a little nervous, I won't lie, but I'm hoping that they will live up to the hype that I've heard. Also, I'm just going to point out here, all of these books are relatively short. Do you see these lengths? Nothing is chunky, so that is a good sign. We can definitely get a lot of these done this month, hopefully, if I can be, you know, on top of my reading. So wish me luck as always. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite or actually least favorite book was from last month. I'm curious and I want to know. And as always, subscribe because I post new reading videos on here every single Thursday. Love you so much. Have a great week. And also if you want to watch my last video, which was my reading vlog, I will have it linked here on the screen. Goodbye.